Welcome everybody to a new episode of Sobre Mesa podcast. The episode today, it's a very special one, not only because of the guest that we have, but also because of what I'm recording right now will probably become obsolete in the next couple of days, given how fast the generative AI space is evolving. So the idea is to provide a brief introduction on the topic. How did we get here? Why is everybody talking about this new buzzword out there? And provide some preliminary conclusions and thoughts that should serve or hopefully serve as food for thought more than anything else. Then we'll jump to a more interesting part of the episode, which is when we sit down with Matt PhotoRoom, co-founder and CEO of PhotoRoom, a generative AI startup that is crushing it. And we have a very thoughtful and thought-provoking conversation. So I hope you enjoy. Okay, I made this quick and dirty presentation just to make the content a bit easier to follow. So I grabbed a bunch of graphs and snips, and we'll try to put them all in the show notes, but please let me know if I'm missing anything. Okay, so we've been hearing a lot of this lately. This time is different. For example, crypto didn't have use cases, but AI does. So this time is different. Or we've never seen an adoption this fast before. This time is different again. But in reality, this is just another episode of the This Time is Different saga, which has been around since the dawn of times. A famous money manager, Sir John Templeton, said the four most expensive words in the English language, and for a good reason. Still remember the days of the previous AI hype cycle in 2016, 2018, when the chatbots were all the rage at that point. And promises got way ahead of what they could actually deliver. And here we are again in the midst of another AI hype cycle. So this is a study done by Gartner, and it shows in September 22, we're likely at the peak of the hype cycle. But in reality, if you look at what happened after September up until today, January 2023, that's a bit of a proxy using Google Trends, and the graph of interest is just up and to the right. So we're likely at the peak of the generative AI hype cycle. Even if this is true, I think there are some things that we cannot ignore. And for example, look at the chart on the number of AI patents filed over the years. This is a famous graph already. I think there's one with 2022. But the point here is it's at least an order of magnitude higher than the previous AI cycle I was talking about before. And this shows the accumulation of decades of R&D and machine learning innovation, which led to incredible progress in hardware innovation, data infrastructure, and overall performance. We can see this clearly looking at the graph on the right, how AI performance has improved dramatically over the last few years. In almost all cases, image, text, and speech, performance is on par or even better than certain human benchmarks. We can talk about what this means and some of the limitations, but the reality is performance is only getting better. In a similar way, models are getting increasingly bigger and bigger. Famous ChatGPT is built on top of GPT-3 model, which has roughly 200 billion parameters, which is a crazy number compared to the previous models, but it's nothing compared to GPT-4, which is expected to be released in a couple of months, which is said to have at least 1 trillion parameters. So models are getting bigger and bigger, and at the same time, the cost of training these models has plummeted. And these are not just negligible costs to train models. Just to give a couple of examples, it's said that OpenAI spent $12 million on a single training run for GPT-3, and DeepMind spent something like $35 million to train AlphaGo. All of this combined led to an incredible experimentation and a Cambrian explosion from startups, individuals just using this technology to create things. So look at the creative things that you can do. For instance, in the image space, this is using DALL-E and Midjourney or Wumbo and others out there. There's a medieval picture of Wi-Fi not working. They have Homer Simpson as a Greek god. And the same thing goes to text models. ChatGPT, super famous. There are thousands of examples floating around the web of what they can do. This is just one example explaining the problem of overconfidence in the style of someone with extreme overconfidence. And well, they go and not only explain it, but also imitate the style and the tone of someone with overconfidence. So this is why generative AI is poised to disrupt many different industries. As you know, I'm just going to show a couple of media headlines to make the point here. So what can it do? It can write cover letters and resumes. It can solve complex programming issues, could even potentially disrupt Google's current model. You know, it's way easier to just get a straight up answer if the answer is correct, obviously, as opposed to just scrolling through endless articles or going to page 7 of Google. You can write music, TV, episodes. And my favorite of all, I think the school essay is gone. And there's a lot of schools forbidding ChatGPT just because of this reason. So key message here, contrary to previous AI bubbles in the past, this is not just circumscribed to universities or research labs. I think the genie's out of the bottle here, and startups, individuals, companies are leveraging these large models to create compelling value propositions for customers. And this is important. So this is not just an experimentation thing. This is getting down to actual customers and actual value propositions. So I'm just going to use one example. This is Jasper AI. It's an API wrapper of ChatGPT. So they're built on top of ChatGPT, and they create high quality marketing copy in just seconds. So I'll let you look at this example, but let's say you own a gym. You can just put a couple of specs of Crunch Fitness, for instance, $9.99 a month. And I need marketing copy for these. And I want it on the tone voice of Hulk Hogan. And you can see to the right, it not only gives you in a couple of seconds a couple of options, but you can have 2, 3, or 4 different alternatives, and you can tweak them and basically make your job much, much easier and faster. So not only very real business use cases and value propositions, but also very real growth and financial metrics. Just going to show a couple of numbers here. This graph shows ChatGPT's insane growth, reaching 1 million users in just 5 days. And that compares versus Instagram or other record-breaking startups like Spotify that did the same thing in 75 or 150 days. The same goes to, and this is more estimations, but another nice graph by Bessemer, which typically is used for startups showing how fast they grow. There's a bunch of other startups that probably are missing here, but the idea is that it's said that Jasper AI reached the coveted $100 million in ARR in less than 18 months. So if that's true, that would make them one of the fastest growing startups of all time. So everything is fine and good. But if you recall Lensa AI, and I'm sure you might have seen a couple of these pictures go viral in your Instagram stories or Twitter with pictures of your friends or your family kind of reimagined as anime characters or superheroes. It went crazy viral. And again, this is an estimation by Sensor Tower. This is the revenue, estimated revenue per day of Lensa AI. They reached $3.5 million per day in revenue. But maybe you're expecting this graph, maybe not. This is what happened afterwards. So as it went down as fast as it went up, and it's probably currently now at 90% of its peak or even less. They're still doing 200K or so, or we're still doing 200K or so per day, which is absolutely impressive. And probably made enough money to, in less than a month, they said it's basically equivalent to have raised a large Series A. So kudos to them. I think that's impressive. The point here is, I think finding long-term winners and good cohort retention metrics will be very, very hard. So not only churn should be a concern, but the cost to run some of these models are totally astronomical. And don't take my word for it. Here's OpenAI's co-founder, Sam Altman, saying the compute costs are eye-watering. And some estimations that are floating out there say $3 million or so per month to run the engines, although these numbers are probably much higher. And this is the reason why OpenAI is now experimenting with monetization strategies, because just the burn is just insane. So we mentioned how the availability of these large models created an explosion of startups working on interesting things on top of them. We've mentioned PhotoRoom at the beginning. We're going to talk to the founder in a little bit. They're building on top of Stable Diffusion. Jasper is building on top of OpenAI, but there's many wrinkles to this. Remember late December, founder of Jasper's probably got the fright of their lives when OpenAI basically launched something that would basically cannibalize or make Jasper obsolete, or at least make something that's pretty darn similar. So OpenAI even admitted that they will build killer apps to showcase the potential of their models and the progress of them, even at the risk of competing with the apps built on top of them. So I think this poses a question on what's the real platform risk? What are the barriers to entry for others? And when you have everything commoditized on the infrastructure layer, what is really your differentiation? What is really your moat? Which all of this will lead to very intense competitive dynamics. So I'm going to go quickly through this, but the main point here is we cannot forget about the elephants in the room, which is big tech and incumbents. The most important thing, though, is what does it mean for early stage startups? Big tech and other incumbents, not only big tech, but other existing players in the tech ecosystem have very deep pockets. They have immense distribution arms, and they will 100% use these existing channels to push generative AI products that seem to be working for other startups. We've seen this time and again with Microsoft, not with AI, but I'm sure everybody. I have a Windows laptop, and I see Teams every single day, even though I don't want to. So it's an annoying strategy, but it's an extremely effective strategy, and we can see that towards the right. So, main point here is generative AI overhyped? Yes or no? And I think the answer lies in Schrodinger's cat. So it's yes and no at the same time. When investors, entrepreneurs, consumer, and enterprises, basically everybody agrees on something, there's almost a guarantee of a bubble coming. And as we saw in the first slide, we are at the peak of the hype cycle here. This trend has captured the consumer zeitgeist, and we'll see a constant stream of new media headlines. We're seeing that every single day. And most likely this will prompt herd-like mentality like we've seen in other bubbles, crypto in 2021, some regions of the world in 2021 as well, dot-com bubble in 2000s, and we can go back in history. Generative AI will be an oasis of deals within a broader, slower tech market. We started seeing this in 2022. The last couple of quarters, market really slowed down, but generative AI went up in deal volume and deal value. So I think this will continue happening in 2023, despite an overall slower market. This is another guarantee. There will be a lot of noise. Startups popping up every single day, doing very similar things and with very little differentiation. Again, remember the slides that we saw on Lens AI. And so the competitive dynamics will be extremely, extremely strong and something to be careful with. Deal sizes and valuations will continue to go up, and we'll start seeing the typical rationalizations that investors use when wanting to do something despite maybe some red flags, which is, data network effects or unlimited potential, or this is reinventing everything. So these are the arguments of why we're definitely in peak hype cycle and most likely overhyped. Let's look at the other side of the coin and why we might not be as overhyped as we think. For most people, generative AI went from new to obvious in no time. And if investors game theorize a little bit and assume that this is overhyped already, there should be at least some balancing feedback loops coming into play. Bubbles are only bubbles in hindsight, so if that's expected ex ante, then there should be some caution. Next point talks about the broader macro context, especially for fundraising. It's in a very, very tough shape. Investors recently got burned with extremely high valuations from the previous cycle that ended in 2021. And we know humans and people have very short memory, but is it that short? We'll see. Next point is, and this goes way beyond generative AI. I think the age of beta is dead, and we're entering the age of alpha. Categories will not go up and down in tandem. Crypto up, fintech down, generative AI up. I don't think that will be the case anymore, like it was in the age of easy money. There will be now deep divergence within sectors, but successfully cherry picking, even in a seemingly overhyped generative AI sector, should lead to extremely profitable outcomes. The last point is, and we've shown many examples of this throughout the presentation, the use cases for AI or generative AI at this point are undeniable, I think. And more importantly, the adoption, I think, will be faster and more seamless than we've seen with other tech breakthroughs. This will not require hardware, for example, for consumers, like it did with the mobile revolution or in the VR revolution that never came. And this shouldn't require relearning tech capabilities like crypto, for instance. So they should be completely abstracted away and much easier to adopt. And on top of this, incumbents in tech, big tech, not big tech, just tech ecosystem writ large, will be quick to adopt the useful things of generative AI and will use their distribution arms, as we said before, to further push adoption. So generative AI, is it overhyped? Yes and no at the same time. And now let's go and meet Matt, co-founder and CEO of PhotoRoom, for a very insightful conversation. Welcome to a new episode of Sobremesa podcast. Joining our table today, we have PhotoRoom's co-founder and CEO, Matt Reef. PhotoRoom is AI for business photography, and they help small business owners remove the background of the objects they want to sell on Poshmark, eBay, and other marketplaces and create amazing, professional-looking marketing images. So with that, Matt, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Matthias. I'm really happy to be on the show, and thanks for giving me the time.
100%. So Matt, let's start from a little bit from with your background and your story. Many entrepreneurs have different triggers and different reasons they start their startups. I think your story fits the pain point archetype, and curious to get your thoughts around what pushed you to start, or what was that pain point that pushed you to start a PhotoRoom, and what made you say, or what was so frustrating for you to say, screw it, I'm gonna start a company just around this pain point?
Yeah, I think for my background, it's two sides. Like, I've been working on photo apps for the past 14 years. I actually got into to learn iPhone and developing overall because I wanted to start a photo business. And as an engineer, it seemed easier to learn to code an app than like buying and procuring hardware to print photos. So that's how I got into the photo apps and started 14 years ago. And specifically about PhotoRoom stories, I was in a startup, Stupeflix, that was acquired by GoPro, and I was like in charge, the PM for the photo apps. And as a PM, you need to promote your product and promote the app, the GoPro actually, or like internally, externally. And there was this day where I needed to promote the app, and I had no designer in the team on this day. They were on vacation, and I opened Photoshop. I knew how to use Photoshop for the past 10 years, but still I was overwhelmed with what I had to do. And I felt I wasn't alone in this situation. Like I think I'm good with computers, and I was supposed to be good with Photoshop, and my visual story was horrible. So I felt like there was a need with all the AI coming already at that time, like that was 2017, like to do something simple for you want to edit something fast and tell a story visually, and you need an app that does that. And I wasn't happy with the tools I had at that point.
And that was during GoPro, you said, after the acquisition?
Yeah, I was at GoPro after the acquisition, and like really promoting the app I was working on and do that visually. Amazing opportunities to have like millions of users seeing that, and I couldn't tell the story I wanted. And I realized later, like starting PhotoRoom, that there are hundreds of millions of people out there that are either like owners, entrepreneurs, sellers, and they need good visual to sell. Like they can be restaurant owner, like a jewelry designer, clothing designer, like thrifters. They all need like good photos. Today, that's what's the most important, and they need a tool for that. They don't know how to do Photoshop.
Because GoPro is obviously a image related company, but at its core is a hardware company, right? Like, did you take anything from your experience at GoPro that stuck with you after you left?
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, that's GoPro is hardware and I would say marketing. Like it's an amazing brand, and we were coming from the opposite as a startup. We were like a software company,
Yeah.
so I learned a lot on brand marketing, which was really interesting as an engineer. I also learned like how important is culture, seeing like two cultures that were radically different, like marketing versus software, US versus France. I learned a lot on like how important it is to move fast with like amazing people. If you don't have people aligned on culture and everything, it can make amazing people do like bad things. I mean, not productive things. And so I learned a lot on that too.
Interesting. And Matt, one other thing that stood out to me from your background is that you spent a decade almost developing individual applications, right? In the golden era of the mobile world and the iPhone apps, starting in the 2010s. And so you developed, I think, something like 30 different applications in the span of 10 years, and then decided to say, you know what, I'm going to focus only on one specific use case, which I think the first one was just the background removal, and I'll just build a robust business around it. So how was that transition from going through, developing app after app to say, I'm going to focus only on one specific use case?
Yeah, I think 10 years ago, like what people like tend not to see when they stay in an industry long is like how big it goes. And mobile has grown from like maybe tens of millions of people using that 13 years ago to 5 billion people. So in the beginning, there were tons of apps, and I remember like vividly being like doing my iPhone class in 28 and like seeing a developer that I admire, entrepreneur, telling me, "No, that's like summer 28. Oh, apps are done. Like everything has been done." So it's crazy, you know. And so what happened is actually,
2008? Yeah,
yeah,
far from, yeah. I mean, the iPhone was released 2007, I think.
yeah, there wasn't
So
Instagram, there wasn't Uber, there was
yeah, yeah.
so and I think what happened is first like iPhone got like new sensors with new opportunities, camera, GPS that enable like new AI is also one, enable like new kind of business, new kind of product, and also just the scale that it went to is just amazing. Like now it went from 10 millions of people in Silicon Valley having an iPhone to 5 billion people, and it's the single most important computer in people's life. Like the scale of mobile is like 10x what you get on desktop, and people tend to forget that. So that's why I think today, if you want to be the leader and do the best job at the app you're doing, I mean, it's 30 or 100 people working on it is nearly not enough. So if you want to have a chance at being the leader and delivering value, you have to focus on one single app. Focus is so important.
What are some practical advice that we can give to our listeners based on your experience of launching so many individual apps to shipping features and products fast? If you had to boil it down to a couple of practical advice for people shipping products and shipping features.
Yeah, I think two things that are important to me is like getting feedback from users on what you ship, and that goes with like if you want to get real feedback and know if you're like onto something, you need to ship fast. So, for instance, first version of PhotoRoom was shipped in less than 3 weeks from zero line of code to like being in the hands of users. We actually put subscription and payment right away to get feedback from people paying. We put intercom because on mobile, like people don't write email; they just want to chat. So, like we did everything with my co-founder Elliot to like put feedback from our users as fast as possible. That's our philosophy. We went to McDonald's. We would like offer a meal. So in Paris, everyone goes to McDonald's, and we would offer a meal in exchange for testing the app. Like we would do that every week. Collect the feedback, just code and change a few things to get people to test new features, and it was always surprising. So we would do that, and we learned so much like about marketplace and everything doing these interviews. And so the first one would be ship fast, and then really collecting feedback as fast as possible, and these two go hands in hands together, I think.
Matt, so now into more of the juicy part of the conversation. For those in tech living under a rock that haven't tested the Chat GPT, the DALIs of this world, can you maybe recap the past 3-6 months in developments in the AI world, and what is really happening, and why do we think this could be so transformative?
Yeah, so what happened in AI is that OpenAI, so generative AI is the idea that you can generate like realistic content from AI. So without like something that doesn't exist before, and it generate like literally create something that is didn't exist before. And what happened here is that OpenAI and Hugging Face like made that happen on text 2-3 years ago, and the past 3 months, 6 months, we've seen that happening for visuals, which is like, I mean, there are two, like text and visual are like the bricks and mortar of the building blocks of the internet. So it's really huge, and it got to a quality where it's actually like usable for a lot of use cases and businesses. And it started with OpenAI that will release DALI initially, so you can write a text, write a prompt, or actually make in paint, so make a hole in an image and it will repaint it, so, and generate the pixel. So from an image with a hole or from text, you can generate realistic photos visuals that help you in your business. Like there's so many use cases, I mean, on the internet for that. And so this started with OpenAI, I would say 6 months ago. And then the other reason why it went so fast is that few companies, Runway ML, Stable Diffusion, Stability AI, sorry, release publicly an algorithm, Stable Diffusion, and the nets, and the neural nets, the weight of the algorithm to do that. And so any company now can do it, and they have access to that. They can tweak it. They know the architecture. So it's really, the people were not prepared for like open source for that, and so that explains why it went so fast. It's like it just like everyone can build on top of it. There's no like everyone has the right to do it, and
can you explain what maybe let's focus on Stable Diffusion, because that's going to be related to PhotoRoom. What maybe let's give a layman's explanation of what Stable Diffusion is, how these models work, what are they trained off of, and like get a basic understanding of what it means under the hood, and then we can delve into more PhotoRoom.
Yeah. So basically, the algorithm of Stable Diffusion, it's a machine, it's an AI that had crawl like the internet to learn what good image look like, and it had, like it trained itself, and so now it knows how to generate pixels that are realistic from the billions of images it's seen out there under the description. So you can come to it and give an image or a text as an input, and it can generate a new one that matches your description or is close to what you give as an input.
And where are these images coming from?
It's basically all they don't like. I'm not sure they say like all the images are exactly from, but basically they're crawling like Google, they're crawling internet and looking at image, reading the description, and and what they do, like how do they train themselves? They basically train themselves to they remove a part of the image, and the AI trains itself to redraw this part, and it compared to the image and learns if it did well or not. And like with AI and the AI algorithm, with time it learns how to do it better and better, to a point where it's actually like super realistic and it looks like a real photo or a real illustration that you would find on the internet.
Yeah. And how does yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, so it's happening now because of the like GPU power that we have, like the huge amount of data that's on the internet, and also architecturally on AI that we have this kind of building block that's transformers, which are like big neural network, which makes it which is big enough and has like the architecture that makes it able to learn like such a big amount of data from the image it's seeing.
And how does PhotoRoom relate to Stable Diffusion and all of these advances in AI? How are you guys using AI and generative AI to operate the model?
Yeah, so the story of PhotoRoom is we started by removing the background and putting your product. So we start from the product photos into a scene or a template that works for you. But the challenge, so we're the best to remove background, but then the challenge is where do you put once you remove the background? So for us, we actually had that in the roadmap early before OpenAI. Like, how do you make the best photo from that? How do you make like realistic studio scenes that like replace shooting in a studio that would cost like $10,000? And if you remove the pixel, it only makes sense then to be able to regenerate them. So we saw DALL-E, and it like matches, and like it showed that it was technically feasible. And actually, the day that Stable Diffusion was released, we literally stopped the company and say, okay, we're going to do 1 week of hackathons, and let's come up with original ideas. We knew it was transformative, and we we made some small teams and create like a product ideas that would make sense from Stable Diffusion. We were the first to create this little tool to generate a background that doesn't like learn what your product is, but out of a text. So it's a AI background generator is one of PhotoRoom tools. But how it is like today, what's the vision? Basically, we have a feature that's now in the app that's called Magic Studio. We're just releasing the second version, and it literally creates a realistic scene, learning your product, but also learning the lighting, and we create realistic shadows, realistic lighting in an amazing scene, like a Christmas one, a minimalist one. If you're like want a simple scene, it can be wood, it can be snow, it can be like it can be unique for your business and adapted to your need depending on the time of the year. So it's like really transformative for, and you just need like 5 seconds to have it done. So
yeah,
for us,
we'll show. It's so easy to use, and you can use it from your phone. I can take a picture of this mate and just take a picture, remove the background. I can just write something for inspiration for the background, and it appears beautifully. And I can sell this hopefully for a lot of money. But we can maybe show then in the post production, what's the result, and we can do that very very easily on our phone. One of the things that you mentioned, I think it's so interesting, is okay, this Stable Diffusion open source came out. You guys stopped the company, did a bunch of hackathons, but like, how do you keep up with such a rapid change as a fast growing startup like you guys? And some people say if you're not disrupting yourself, you're gonna probably be disrupted by somebody else. How do you prevent that from happening? What do you do internally to keep up with all of these changes? And this is true for AI and for other cutting edge sides of technology.
Yeah. So we try, as a company, we are a bit like, you might have some startups starting now. So we were conscious of what our strength and our weakness. We try to live in the future. So we use internally tons of AI tools, and we try to live in like what's going to be in like 1 or 2 years. I think there's a good program post on that. And so we feel the pain point of like what's going to be the pain point from the AI tools and build on top of that. So that's one of the thing we put in place. And also we really focus on commerce photography. Our mission at PhotoRoom is to power commerce photography. And there are so many things you can build with generative AI. So I think the mistake would be to like try to build it all. Like we know our persona, resellers, marketplace, e-commerce people, they are the one we're serving. And so we always try to take the angle of, okay, are we delivering value of this tool for this audience? And we also know, I mean, one of our edges, we have the best AI to remove background, which is actually helpful. And so we do train our algorithm, we do change the product to serve e-commerce people and marketplaces as best as possible.
Got it. And so that's another very interesting topic that I'm still trying to come up with a view here, because when you mentioned Stable Diffusion, and again, reminder, this is open source, actually created by Stability AI, another company. You guys are building some of the features on top of that, and others can build on top of that model as well. So how do you see the pros and cons of using open source existing models from third parties as opposed to building your own models? And how do you see this evolving in the future? Do you think you guys could be a middle layer, and kind of the successful companies will be middle layers using existing models, or companies that will develop their own models, with the cons obviously being a lot of capital required probably to come up with that?
Yeah, so it's kind of a tech, like like traditional computing, you would have SQL or like a code framework, or and so what I believe is like a startup like us is taking this core research tree and adapting it to our audience, that our mission as a company. And what does it mean for ML startups? So is you need to customize the machine learning to the audience. So I think we have a big edge at PhotoRoom because we are an AI first company. We have an AI team, and basically, if you take like some other solution for generating the background, they're just taking off the shelf. What we do at PhotoRoom is we would train the network to be like customized to your need as a for commerce photography. So we have an edge on that, and our ML is, as we have the skill internally, we starting from the open source, but we're adapting it a bit. And if you're going on your side like for 2 years, then the open source and the kind of the common trunk is going too fast, so you're going to be behind. So what we do best for our customers is we really, you have the benefit of the open source, but also it's customized to your need, and that I think is important. And then we also customize the ML and the product to our needs. So we're like the AI depends on the data you get. You can take the different architecture depending on how fast you need to go, and that depends on the user needs. So I think there's really an edge of being able to adapt the networks themselves and kind of train them to the specific product need.
Yeah,
it's
I
a bit
think
like
that's interesting.
yeah,
Go ahead,
a
Matt.
bit like we do a mobile app. Like there are you want to go native, like that's where I come from for development. So like you want to benefit from the latest feature from the device, like the camera for iOS, for
Exactly.
instance.
And I think that's the main difference with you guys versus others that might have or might stumble upon a tremendous take breakthrough. And it's like, running like a headless chicken, trying to find a use case to apply that tech to. And you guys are at core, of a photography company, and you have those pain points as a mission, and now you're applying tech to serve those purposes.
I think one of our strengths is to have like this playground of millions of users, so we can like try new stuff and then put in production for bigger marketplace or e-commerce. But we can play with the tech really early on. And so when you look at today, I mean, already like today, what you can do is amazing. But basically, from a photo, you can generate any background to have to be like a marketing ready promotion. That's generative AI, and with PhotoRoom API for like e-commerce marketplace shop, like you can run our API to have like remove backgrounds to apply the same background, have the same padding everywhere, so it like really looks uniform, and adjust brightness. So that's what we provide today. It's ready. You like marketplace are already like some of the fastest marketplace already implementing it. When you look at the future, I think is for the marketer of an e-commerce or marketplace. What's really interesting is you can go from a photo that's actually quite good for like multiple scenes, multiple background that you can adapt to a segment, just in like a snap. Like today, you need to like arrange your photo shoot. It takes 3 weeks to see. Like you need to come up with your marketing angle, with your tagline, then arrange a photo shoot. Then like 2 months later, it's ready. And now, like it literally takes 15 seconds, so you can really be faster to adapt. You can run multiple ideas at the same time, and it costs like $50, a few $100 to test that. So that's coming really soon in a few months, I think. It's almost ready in PhotoRoom.
And if you had to stretch it and say going longer time frame, like 5 to 10 years, like what do you think this will look like? And again, we're just making stuff up, but letting your imagination ride a little bit. Like, what do you think PhotoRoom looks like in 5+ years?
Yeah, so content will adapt. Like I literally in 1-2 years, like video and 3D will come. So in PhotoRoom, you'll be able to take a video of your product. I mean, what say like, okay, let's take Nike, Louis Vuitton, IKEA, and we bring that to a single person shop or like a 5-person shop, and they can build this level of ads and creatives. And then I think it's going to be really like a profusion of like creation of this medium like videos, but it can adapt to any segment, any people that comes to your shop. So you can have different creatives based on who's visiting your shop. You can adapt, you can learn like what to sell, and like really, adapt the content, the visual content to who's visiting your shop live. That's like how fast it's going to be and how powerful it's going to be. Creation is so easy.
So going up the creation stack and not only being able to have an amazing marketing picture, like professional picture, but also professional videos eventually, and all the entire campaign as well. Like a small business owner could have the same level of professionalism as a Nike marketeer, for instance.
Yeah, literally from your phone, you can trigger a campaign, multimodal videos and photos, tagline, and try it, and like and iterate, do multiple variation, and test it. Like basically from your phone, you can launch a campaign Nike level. What's really interesting in this case, I think it's the first time that you see a tech or like a science paper that goes in the end with stable diffusion of millions, maybe billions of users, because TikTok used stable diffusion in less than a few months. So it's like I've never seen that happen in tech or in
it's crazy. And I think the other important piece, and we can show this graph afterwards, but it's getting the performance of this model is getting increasingly better for images, for text, for speech. So if you're seeing 2022 versus maybe 2017, it's actually on par in some cases to human baseline. Whereas before it was it was good but not impressive. And right now, I invite anybody to try these tools that we've been discussing today out. It's pretty impressive. So I think that's the other performance piece. It's another important thing that we haven't discussed.
Yeah, and human baseline on that, like especially on generating images. Text, it's kind of training itself on text. So don't know
Yeah,
I don't know if it can go much higher than like humans text level, but on image it's inspiring itself from photography. So it can definitely go higher than like what human can do on that side. So
yeah,
the no, I mean the sky is the limit in this case in terms of
totally.
performance.
Yeah. In on the flip side, because we're talking about all of these amazing things that generative AI can do, what do you think are some of the limitations that it has today? And even one of the co-founders of OpenAI said something like, I wouldn't rely on Chat GPT to do anything serious or anything important. And I'm paraphrasing here, but that was sort of the gist of it. What do you think are some of the limitations today?
Yeah, I do think generative AI today shines when it's, and that's our philosophy at PhotoRoom, where it's working in pair with a human. So I mean, if you look at for programming, GitHub Copilot, it's not going to program apps today, but the best developer I know, they use Copilot every day for like, yeah, getting learning. Actually, they discover new function, getting faster to like the first draft of the version. I
Totally.
think
Or
it's
Jasper AI, where you can write copy, 5 times faster or something like that. It's just augmenting whatever you're already doing and cutting time.
yeah, exactly, and it's same for marketer. It's same for I mean the same role of PhotoRoom. Like you might want to do some tweaks of your image. And actually, one of the big edge of PhotoRoom on images is that we're the only one to have like a cross-platform running engine. So if you generative AI will give you like a first version of it, but then if you want to remove some defects, if you want to adjust the lighting or the brightness, and we have the tech in place, we have the platform in place, so you can correct that, and we're the only one to have that.
So what on that note, people always, every time, every 2 3 years, we talk about like, oh, the jobs are gonna disappear with XYZ new technology. So when thinking along those lines, what do you think could be easily replaced? And I think, thinking back 5 7 years ago on the previous kind of AI bull run, people always said, okay, the creative jobs are going to be safe, or the creative job, only the automated ones or the repetitive jobs are going to be automated. But what we're seeing right now, and even with PhotoRoom, you're disrupting, and again, not completely today, but a creative endeavor like photography, in like marketing with Jasper. And so like it seems like it wasn't that obvious that the creative piece will get disrupted. Even Dali, right? So we have some artists complaining that they're taking their images and recreating in their own style. So it seems like the creative piece, which was supposed to be the safest one, is not maybe as safe. So how do you look at the future of work with this generative AI counterparts?
Look, I think it really disrupts the jobs and like the way we work as creatives, be it like a photographer, writers, marketers, or developers. But it's changing the way. So it's just like I think we're going to build more and more content, more and more software. And what's important for everyone is to adapt. Like, okay, what's the most important part of a creative job? It's like telling the story, and the AI doesn't invent the story. You tell like you have to give some guideline in Jasper, in PhotoRoom. You have to like tell which product you want to sell today, and it gives you, yeah, it gives you more idea faster. It gets you out of the blank page problem, and so you can like really creative people can create more. And for the photographer, I think the most interesting part is like I also asked like thinking about the lighting, thinking of like if you have a subject, like making them look good and smiling and everything. So there's a lot of human component to it that still exists. Like I do think the most creative people will actually create a lot more with AI, and it's really this vision of PhotoRoom where we're helping people tell their story more and be more productive.
So it's not only being in a creative space, full stop, it's being the most creatives of the creatives in a way. And this could augment again and kind of highlight all of those attributes that you have.
Yeah, I use it on the day, like to find ideas of templates or idea of scenes for product. I actually use OpenAI to give me like, oh, I didn't think of this kind of photos that could work with a product. So it's really something that everyone can use to be more creative and more productive.
what can, if if you asked somebody 10, 15 years ago, these are the trends that I'm looking at the future, you should totally go out and learn how to code. That's what the typical advice or the successful advice would have been 10, 15 years ago. What do you think a similar advice could be today? With that vision that you just described in mind, if you're talking to a 10-year-old, whatever, what do you think is a good advice to say, get into XYZ given this trend that I just described?
That's a great question. I think so. I mean, AI is trained on human, but it doesn't have the same paradigm of thinking. And what's important is to be able, like, play with these tools and like see by yourself that they don't, like, sometimes you'll be surprised by the result and try to understand and dig a bit more, because it's not easy, like, to like adapt yourself and try to work in a different way, to have a different work setup. And that's what I think will happen every day, or every, like, in the with new tools, with this explosion of AI. So you have new tools that make you more productive, but it's changing the way you work. It's not just changing your habits. Is not easy. So I would definitely encourage people to, like, try this, try generative AI tools to understand, like, okay, how powerful it is, and how can you, like, work in a different way and adapt, like the way you work, because it's
So
going,
get
like,
immersed, get used to this new way of working, and it could be with whatever, with any products or tools out there. Just get immersed with it sooner rather than later, and try to adapt whatever attributes you have ahead of the game.
Yeah, exactly. That would be my advice.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. Again, it's so tough to predict what will happen in only 2 years, let alone 5 to 10 years. So yeah, totally getting maybe even an expert more in your field, to your point before, being the most creative or the creatives, being the best at whatever field you are at, and really have to step up the game, because the low-hanging fruit of whatever you're doing will be automated, right? If you're writing a shitty blog post, that will get done in ChatGPT. If you want to write with a very unique style, maybe that's going to be separating from the rest. So I think lots of cool stuff to come up out of this trend. And I think a lot of people are excited, consumers, VCs, entrepreneurs. Do you think, and we've seen this in the past, we've seen it in crypto, we've seen it in mobile, we've seen it in many of these waves. Do you think we're kind of in a bubble in the making with generative AI and funding and VC and excitement?
Yeah, if, like, by bubble you mean, like, people that are not, like, genuinely interested in this field, that just and build
Yeah, all of whatever meaning you want to give it to bubble. It could be VC money thrown at it. It could be people that are not interested in just building on top of generative AI using buzzwords, whatever interpretation you want to give it.
Yeah, probably, like, generative AI is in the spotlight. There's probably a bubble here. Us, we've been, like, I've been in photo for the past 15 years. With Elliot, we started working on machine learning for photos like 8 years ago. So built some AI before there was caramel on the phone. So we're here for we're passionate about that. We'll be here we've seen the waves, I think. And so we're here for the long run. I think what's interesting is, like, there'll be, like, it is definitely GPU intensive. So having money on top of that, it will accelerate the quality of the big open source AI. So this is great for everyone. There'll be some interesting application. There's definitely, like I mean, I'm not a Y Combinator partner, but we did YC, and I'm sure, like, a good proportion of the YC application are talking about generative AI. So there'll be tons of teams, and there'll be, like, maybe too many teams. But I think the open source part of it makes it interesting, because it will, like, go faster because of the money that has been put into it right now.
All right, Matt, can't thank you enough for this terrific conversation. I want to leave you 1-2 minutes for any closing remarks. Where can people find more about you, about PhotoRoom, and then we'll wrap it up with that.
Yeah, so we're PhotoRoom.com. We just, like, download the PhotoRoom app on Play Store, App Store.
Try it out.
Try it out. Try our generative AI feature, Magic Studio. We just released an update where it took 3 minutes before, it's taking 3 seconds, so 100x faster to tell you how fast this is going. And I think it's amazing for e-com and marketplaces to like generate image that sell more. So if you have like specific ideas, happy to chat about it. We're still in like a product definition, product UX phase to improve it. So happy to chat at Mathieu at PhotoRoom.com and or anyone in the
should you meet in McDonald's in Paris? Is that
yeah,
the
the
meeting?
good McDonald's in Paris and right in the studio. We'll be there to interview you. And maybe also, if you're a marketplace, we just released a new version of our API where not only you remove background, but you respect the template. So padding, margin, brightness, white background, or any color you want. So you're gonna have that right away. It's super easy to put in place. We're already working with some of the fastest growing marketplace. So happy to work on that and help you. Yeah, photo quality is one of the single most important thing to sell right now, as people are buying from a smartphone. It's like more than 50% of the pixel is their photo. So yeah, happy to like work together on putting that in place in the marketplace. And we're also hiring growing our marketplace muscle, like product and go to market and engineering, always iPhone, Android, machine learning and growth. Yeah.
Are you hiring all around the world or only in Europe?
We are hiring in Europe. We help to relocate anywhere in Europe, the European time zone, and
awesome.
it's
and we'll put the link to the open positions as well, together with the rest of the stuff. All right, Matt. Really appreciate it.